got 2 bolsters, fantastic, grab them. If you don't, no big deal. Everything you can do without the bolsters. And then for the pregnant ladies, we're gonna get like a nice blanket. We're gonna do a little mini roll if we're using the bolsters, and we're gonna snuggle it in up against those bolsters. If we're not using bolsters, second, third trimester, we wanna have something underneath our pelvis. And if at any point it feels like too much lying on your back without bolsters, you can just do the series on your side, okay? Feel free to ask any questions. But otherwise, we're gonna snuggle right in. We're gonna come down over the bolsters, just like that. Let's have our knees together, our feet together. I like to kind of push into my feet, lift up my butt, kind of give it a little rock from side to side, and then really thinking about moving the flesh of the butt away from the low back and bringing my pelvis down. Again, so 2 blocks would be great too. So we're gonna do 2 blocks, 2 bolsters. Squeeze your knees to one another with the feet on the floor, and then open your knees up gently. Exhale to squeeze the knees, and inhale to open. Just opening and closing those legs, whilst keeping that firm base of the feet on the floor. Giving ourselves a little bit of a boundary there. The next time we open up the knees, we're going to keep the knees open, let those arms be beside us, palms facing up. We're just going to start to breathe into our body. I'm going to keep the breath somewhat organic today, less direction. But just noticing if you can get the body to expand with the inhale. Noticing if you can let the body kind of sink, shrink, contract with the exhale. To get a little bit more opening through the sternum and the chest, I like to kind of push into my elbows and the backs of my hands. And it feels as if there was a hand underneath my sternum lifting. It feels as if I could lift the skin of my armpits up towards the ceiling as we continue to focus on breathing into our bodies. Inhale, body expands. Exhale, body gently contracts. With each exhalation, just encouraging yourself to let go of any stress, any strain that you might be holding. And with each inhalation, inviting in a sense of peace, calm, and relaxation. If you want to take it deeper into the hips, you can let those knees come wide, soles of the feet flat. You could use pillows or blocks on your outer thighs, particularly if you're pregnant, you want to give yourself a little bit more support. Or you can go back into the creeper anytime you like with the soles of the feet on the floor. Continuously focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. With each inhale, feel the body expanding, and with each exhale, feel your body gently contracting. I really like to use the full moon as a time of reflection, particularly reflecting on goals that I may have set for this month or this year. Just checking in to see if I'm on track to reach those monthly or yearly goals. And if I'm not on track, just checking checking in and asking myself why. Maybe it's because I need to change the goal. Or maybe it's because I just need to introduce new ways that I might be able to reach that goal. Let's take 10 more rounds of breath, just like that. And then reflecting on whatever it is you need to look at. When those 10 breaths are complete, just make quietly with your natural breath. And firing up those feet, using the abdominal muscles to bring those knees together. Once the feet are on the floor, just kind of lift up your pelvis and give it a little rock from side to side. Let that fascia release. And then knees are going to touch, and we're going to heel toe the feet apart, keeping those knees touching. Once we arrive at our deepest, we're going to pigeon toe so that the baby toe edge of the foot is nice and straight. We're going to reach our fingers up towards the sky. Right arm is going to cross over left arm. We're going to reach around for our shoulders and give ourselves a nice little hug. You can even open and close your elbows a couple times just to make sure you've got the crossing right. Sometimes that left hand likes to come over that right shoulder. And then think about lifting the bottom arm up as the top arm continues to root. Maybe rock your head just a little bit from side to side. And then arrive with the chin in center. And you can use your hands and grip your shoulders, or you can let your fingers just kind of dangle and allow the arms to just kind of hang, whatever you prefer. Close your eyes, take a great big exhale to empty, and then once you're empty, once again, just finding your breath. With each inhale, feel the body expanding, and with each exhale, feel your body gently shrinking, sinking, contracting. Focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. With each inhale, allowing the body to expand, to broaden. With each exhale, allowing the body to shrink and contract. Let's take 5 more rounds of breath on this side before we swap the crossing. When those 5 breaths are complete, reach your fingers back up to the sky like a zombie. Left hand is going to come over right and take left shoulder. Right arm's going to go underneath and take right shoulder. We can open and close those elbows like a bird beak a few times to make sure that that right hand isn't dominantly holding that shoulder down. And then squeezing the arms, press them into the chest. Lift your bottom arm up as the top arm pushes down, and just give your head a little rock to get that little bit of fascial release. And then stop with your chin and center, relax your shoulders. You can grip your shoulders or you can release your fingers and let them hang. Big exhale to empty, and then finding beautiful breaths inside your body. Focusing on your body from the inside, focusing on your breath. No force, no agitation, just mindful breathing. Let's take 5 more breaths here. And then let those arms come down beside you, palms facing up, shoulders relaxing. And from here, we're going to heel toe, those feet in. Lift up the pelvis, give it a little wiggle. Now, if you're not on bolsters, you might want to have your heels dug in at a 90-degree angle. If you're on bolsters, just straighten out your legs and let your legs relax and allow this chest opening to happen. But if you're not on bolsters, give yourself, you could lie in Shavasana, but sometimes it's nice to have a little more action in the legs since you're not getting that chest opening. And then just close your eyes, big exhale to empty. And then once you're empty, finding those beautiful breaths. In through the nose, out through the nose. Using your mind to really slow down and control your breathing. Maybe you want to just sort of reaffirm what it is you're working on by using a mantra, stating an intention, using language as if your intention was already true. Let's take 10 more full, deep breaths, just like that. Really affirming our intention by matching our mantra to each and every one of those breaths. And when those 10 breaths are complete, you're going to bend your knees, you're going to pick up your hips, move them to the right, roll off to the left to push yourself up, and then we're going to sit on a bolster or a block. If you don't have it, it's going to be fine, you're going to survive, but it's really nice to give yourself a little bit of height if you've got it. We're going to come into a cobbler pose, and if you want more height, you can sit on 2 blocks or 2 bolsters. And we're going to bring those heels in quite close. Shoulders back, heart center lifts. We're going to grab onto our knees, and we're just going to start to roll our shoulders backwards. Just lifting the shoulders up and forward, taking them up and back, down, forward, up, and back. So just drawing nice circles with those shoulders. And then changing direction with those circles. And see if you can sit on the center of the sit bones as opposed to the back of the sit bones, if that's at all possible. circles. So I'm just going to take my ribs, and it's almost like my ribs are like a spatula, and I want to go around the bowl. So I'm just like sitting, and I'm just going around the bowl with my rib cage. Good. If you feel like you need more space, you can take your feet away from you if that feels better. Good. Change direction with your rib circles. And stopping with your rib circles, nice inhale to come up. We're just going to move the ribs to the right. See how I'm bulging on one side, shortening on the other, and then the ribs to the left, shortening on one side, bulging on the other. Just kind of going from side to side with the ribs. And then maybe you go one way and you just hold for a few breaths. Stretching from hip to armpit on the side you're bulging. And then back over to the other side. And then back to straight. And then we're going to come down to the right without bulging. So we want to get this really gorgeous fascial release through this left love handle. And if we bulge the ribs, we're going to lose that fascial release, right? It's not wrong, it's just not as effective. And that part of our body gets tight. So I want you to lengthen from right armpit away from right hip. Maybe your fingers come onto the floor. You just kind of come to that right side. Good. And you try not to bulge on that left side. We can be wherever it is that we're straight, right? If you don't feel that fascia stretch, don't worry about it. It's not wrong. You'll get there one day. So it's like you're cha-chinging your ribs, cha-chinging your ribs. And then if you want to go deeper, sometimes it's nice to bring that arm up, right? I don't want my head to be down. I want to have a nice neutral neck. My favorite thing is to like screwdriver here, right? And then I want a screwdriver to an external rotation so that my thumb is pointing like it's going to hitchhike. And then I'm going to bend my elbow, I'm going to grab the back of my skull, I'm going to push my head into my hand, right? If that's too much, I can go back to this, I can go back to this, I can go back to this, right? But then when I've got my head in my hand and my elbow is pulling and my head is pushing, if I do these little mini twists, for me, I get a little more fascial release. So I'm holding my head is rooting, and if I want more stretch, I just kind of twist my spine like I'm spinning a stick. And for me, that's like an incredible low back release. And this kind of work with pregnant ladies, nurses, teachers, it seems to be people that sacrifice their body in service of others that get really tight in this area. And if you find a spot or a mini rotation that feels good, you just hang out. Again, you don't have to have that hand up to get that little wiggle, but you do want to try and keep that spine straight. I'm just breathing here, big, beautiful breaths. And play with it, move it one way, move it the other way. See if you can find it on the other side, with the other twist. Let's take 10 more breaths here, so play with it, move it, be still with it, whatever you fancy. One of my favorite quotes is by Swami Vivekananda. Blessed are those who sacrifice their body in service of others. And there's a lot of those humans. And those humans get tight in that low back, left handle area. Bless them. Great, and then let the sort of neck come to neutral, bring yourself up, and just let that kind of settle. You might want to be perfectly still and just breathe. Maybe you want to inhale your shoulders up and then out through the mouth. And then we're going to do the other side. So remembering what it's like to bulge, and we want to avoid the bulge by lengthening from left hip to left armpit as we come to that left side. It's like a cha-ching, the ribs from the right to the left. Try not to let that right knee lift. Try not to let that right butt lift. And then sometimes it's nice to bring your arm out in front and then bring it through. Neutral neck, so your ear's not by either shoulder, but you're nice and neutral at like a 45. And then I like to screwdriver that right arm in my shoulder here. Then I'm going to internally rotate as much as is comfortable for me. I'm going to bend the elbow, which keeps the elbow in place, and it doesn't do this. If it does this, I get less fascial release. That's why I'm really kind of into that rotation. Good. And then you want to lean the head into the hands. So my hand is kind of pushing my head forward, but my head is equally pushing back into my hand. Shoulders are relaxed. And then I can kind of twist and screwdriver the spine a bit and just notice how that changes it for me. Right? And play with it. If you find a spot you're like, woohoo, hang out, breathe, let that fascia slide. This is like I call them fascia superhighways. It's places where lots of fascial lines crisscross, and when there's fascia on top of fascia on top of fascia, it doesn't necessarily slide as easily as it could, and that's that kind of burning feeling you get in those spots. This one and mid-upper back is kind of the two areas that I find people get stuck the most. And then try a different thing, inhaling, or just keep moving. We're going to do 10 more breaths here, so play with it as much as and where you want to play with it. How much of this room's doing that, eh? Is that family right now? Yeah. I remember how tight that was when I was in third trimester. I was like, woo! Will you feel that too, Wes?
Not too bad.
Not yet.
Not tight spots.
And then when that feels complete, bring your arm down, come back up to center, sit up nice and tall, shoulders back. Take a few deep breaths. And then keeping Baddha Konasana on one foot, see if you might like to do like a creeper on the other foot. So you just rotate so that the sole of the right foot is on the floor. And then just take your right elbow to the inside of that right knee and just get kind of like a mini twist to the left. Good. Right. If you're feeling your knee at all, you can walk your feet away from you. You can come down onto the floor to get more support on that leg. If you're on a block, you might want to add another block underneath your thigh, but you want to feel like that knee is supported. So a little twist to the left, and then if we want to go deeper, we can start to come forward. And I'm pushing into that right foot like I'm going to stand up. Maybe I can come down. And just breathing here. Smooth, even breaths. Really pressing into the sole of that right foot like a creeper, using that big toe heel edge of the foot to create a boundary so that I can get right into that top of that where sort of the quad meets the hip flexor. And it gets right into that space for me. Everybody might feel it somewhere different, but we don't want to feel it in that left knee. And adjust. You can take the feet away from you if that's better, if you need to, whatever works. Let's just go 10 breaths here before we do the other side. And then when those 10 breaths are complete, we're going to come up and we're going to swap. So back into your cobbler, and then sole the left foot on the floor, right leg is wide. Make sure we don't feel that knee. Use that left foot with the big toe down so that we create that boundary. And then bring your left elbow keeping the two sides of the torso level, armpits level, shoulders relaxed. And then if you want to come forward, coming forward. Just finding your breath there. Really taking your mind into that spot where you're feeling the sweet sensation of the stretch, and really think about breathing into that space. Let's go 10 more breaths here. And when those 10 breaths are complete, we're going to come up. We're going to take both knees up, take both feet wide, center the heels, shoulders back, take those heels in, grab onto those knees, just sitting up nice and tall, feet flexed. Just lift and lower the shoulders a couple times just to loosen those up. Good. And then bring your fingers to your shoulders, hold onto those shoulders, reach with the elbows, and start with some nice big slow circles with the elbows. Good. And dig those heels in, pull them to you, change direction with the circles. And then stopping with the circles, we're going to open and close those elbows. And then elbows to the side ribs, elbows to a shoulder's height. And staying with that nice straight spine. Add more height if you need to. Take those heels in, pull them to you. So try not to externally rotate, but staying right on the center of those heels. We're prepping ourselves for what's coming. Good. Elbows at a shoulder's height. We're going to inhale to straighten, flip, flip, bend. So one joint at a time moves. Forearms move, wrist flips back, and then back to the shoulders. Just a little bit of nerve flossing here. Good. Now the next time I flip the wrists out, I'm going to screwdriver those arms, pulling my sort of fingers to me, but pushing the palms away. If that's too intense, you can come down to halfway to a T if you like. Just see what you can do. Good. And then you've got two options. You can stop with the fingers pointing straight up to the sky, which is quite intense, or alternatively, you can have the fingers pointing towards the back wall, which is less intense. We're going to bend our elbows, lift them, and bring our hands to our heads so our palm is down. So it's either going to look like middle fingers pointing back, but we want the palms on the head, or middle fingers pointing down. So see, there's thumbs with the temples or palms with the temples, just depending on your range. And then we're just going to go forward and back just a little bit like a butterfly. You're going to love me for this tomorrow. Okay, I call this brain crusher. Good. And then stopping with the butterfly, reach with the elbows, good stuff. And then we're just going to spin like a satellite dish, right? The shape of the elbows isn't going to change. The palms aren't going to move. We're just twisting our spine pretend like we twist a chopstick between our fingers. Keep those heels dug in. And so we see a lot of frozen shoulders when women start to nurse, especially if they've got like jobs that are, used to having their hands down. It's just too much of a good thing. Good, and then twist right to hold and just breathe. So to avoid a frozen shoulder, we want to try and get our elbows high as often as we can, either in like a brainwasher type pose, Queen of the Mountain, or this type of pose. Back over to the other side. Rest when you need to, but not when you don't. Keep a nice neutral neck. Don't let that right elbow come forward. Your elbows are a satellite dish. They don't move. The spine moves. And then back to center, and just back and forth like a teapot, pouring out one, and then the other spout. Good. And letting one side bulge, and the other shorten. Great, we're almost there. And then hold, bulging on one side, shortening on the other. And you could do little tiny elbow movements here if you wanted to. Sometimes this can get a snag nerve to unsnag. Got a little pinch happening. Then elbows stable, up and over to the other side. Maybe you want to wiggle the elbows here just a little bit. And then back up to center, release, good work. Let those palms face up, let those shoulders relax, soles of the feet on the floor. And just take some breaths here. If it's comfortable for you to come forward, come forward. I found once I got bigger that this was a nice option to coming forward, just kind of resting my elbows on my knees and my forehead on my hands. Try not to shake your arms, let them be still, focus on them, and take some big, old, beautiful breaths. Let's go 10 more breaths here. And then coming up, coming off our height, and just going nice and wide with our legs on the floor, shoulders back. And so we're just going to do some wide-legged twists, which I found, again, really nice when I was pregnant. Just taking your right hand to your inner knee, left hand behind you, and just gently twisting. Shoulders relax. Maybe that left hand, if you're, wanting to, can come and just kind of reach around to the pelvis or the love handle. So if you wanted to, you can just bring your hand around, right? Some of us will be able to grab that inner left thigh. Right. And then as we grab that thigh, you can just kind of start to lean over that right leg. Again, we don't have to have the thigh, we don't have to have much of a lean, but some of us are going to be able to lean. Sorry, Chandra. Move back. And some of us might even find that we can put our elbow on the floor and rest our forehead on our hand, or if we wanted to look up at the back of the skull. But that combination of the wide-legged, the shoulder release, it's a nice one. Again, you can look either direction. If it feels like too much for your hamstrings, you could take bolsters or blocks underneath your knees, right, which would give you more of a fold. But you don't have to fold. You could just get that little bit of a twist if Let's go 10 more breaths here. I love that for releasing the neck and the collarbone. Even if you're not getting the bind, you're going to get this gorgeous release through that collarbone area, even if your hand's on your sacrum or your love handle. And then once those 10 breaths are complete, you're going to come up, you're going to release both hands, shoulders back, sit up nice and tall. You can hunch your spine if you need a little break. If you feel like it doesn't need a break, you're going to keep sitting up tall. And then twisting to the left, or to the right, beg your pardon. Left hand in front of you, right hand behind you as you gently twist. Maybe you take that right hand to the pelvis, to the love handle, to the inner thigh if you fancy. Keeping your feet nice and active. Staying on the center of the heels. Remember that exercise of digging the heels and then pulling them towards the butt to keep those hamstrings engaged. And maybe you come over that left side without bulging on that right side. Right? Maybe the elbow comes down. I like to do forehead down personally. I just find it so common to the nervous system, and I just love the collarbone stretch. But it could be whole torso down if you want it to be. This is nice too. Right, wherever you're at is great. Let's take 10 more big, beautiful breaths on this side. And when those 10 breaths are complete, we're going to come up. Beautiful. I'm going to take those hands behind us, fingers pointing behind us. We're going to bend our knees, so we got 90-degree angles, and we're just going to move our knees from side to side like a windshield wiper. All right, so we got two 90-degree angle legs. Just swing back and forth, and you can let the pelvis move, or you can keep the pelvis still. It's going to be deeper on the groins if you keep the pelvis still. And then the next time the legs come to the right, keep the legs to the right, feet nice and active, no wrinkles. And this might be a nice place for you to stay. If you want to go deeper, you can kind of just come up and come over that right knee, letting that left knee come down to the floor, or you can still be back here, whatever you fancy. And then if I want to go real deep, I've got basically a square here between my heel, my knee, my pubic bone, and my knee. And then I might want to come over the knee. For me, it's really deep, but I like to do like a Baddha, right? And then I just hold it, right? So I can either bring my forehead towards my foot, I could bring my chest towards my knee, or I could just be back here being okay with this, whatever works. But this is a really nice deep stretch. Focusing on your body, focusing on your breath. I don't want to feel our knee. It's probably quite intense in our groin, which is fine, but if it's pulling into that left knee, we want to back off. And remember, we can go more over that right knee, which is going to soften the rotation in that left groin. Let's go 10 more breaths here. 10 breaths are complete, I'm going to come back up, hands behind me, really fire at my feet, and I'm going to go back to that windshield wipering I was doing, back and forth, and just gently listening to my body, back and forth. And then the next time my legs come to the left, and then my legs come down to that left side, I'm just going to hang out, just feel what that feels like. I can be here, I can feel my elbows if I wanted to. And so if I'm looking for more stretch, I can kind of sit myself up, I can rotate, I can fold over that left knee, which is a little more mellow, my shin a little more intense, or I think of like that diamond Baddha-Konasana, and I come down like I'm doing a Baddha-Konasana, or cobbler pose. Right. You just kind of find where you find it, and each leg, it's an interesting one, because with these rotations, each one is different, right? We're gonna notice what's going on with our legs. Nice, Laura, that's a good one for you. And again, just breathing into it, I like these, especially on a moon day, it's nice to just hold things, breathe into it. We hold a lot of emotions in our hips, and apparently, according to my Instagram guy, this was a really emotional full moon, so I think a lot of people are processing a lot of stuff. Keep on breathing. Let's go 10 more breaths on this side. When those 10 breaths are complete, we're going to come up, we're going to fire up those feet, we're going to bring those legs up. Beautiful. So we're going to come onto our sides. If you don't have bolsters, you could use pillows, or you could use blocks, whatever you got. We're going to place one bolster or one pillow or one block between our knees and our ankles, okay? And then we're going to take one bolster or one block or one pillow underneath our head, okay? And then we're going to have this bottom arm kind of straight, and I like to touch my hands to start with. My feet are active. Good. And then I've got a bolster, so then I'm going to bend my elbow, and one thing I really like, this is a top tip, is I get my elbow into the bolster crease, and then I wrap my hand around. So you can see that most forearms are the height of that bolster. So I can have my elbow and my wrist kind of creasing with that bolster, and I get this killer wrist release and collarbone release when I do that, okay? And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rock our pelvis. So we're just going to take your hand on your top hip, and you're going to pull your hip back, you're going to pull your hip forward, right? So just pull it back and pull it forward. And you're going to see that your knee moves ahead of your other knee and then behind your other knee. And I can do this without, right? I could be doing this movement without a pillow, but it's just not as nice, right? Because this is a really nice pelvis release. So if we've got that pelvic floor wide, it feels great. I could be doing it with a block, and this is so nice in the delivery room, right? So if you've got a nice partner, I remember Cheryl did this for me. Those of you that know Cheryl, I had the holy grail of doulas, and I had Cheryl Gray, the most amazing massage therapist, and she did this to me, and I just loved it. Right, but you can do it to yourself too. I like to have something between my knees, like I said, when I do it. And then stop with your knees somewhat stacked, and we're going to take that left hand and we're going to grab onto that left shoulder. And we're going to try and lengthen the two sides of the torso, and then we're going to start with those same thoracic park circles. Good. Squeezing the shoulder. And then we're going to change direction with those circles. And then stopping with those circles, and then we're going to chicken wing it to the rib above the shoulder. Good. And then add a shoulder's height to the elbow, and then we're going to open up into the twist. And being gentle, particularly if we're pregnant, some of us are going to be able to open right up. Now some of us are going to want like more of a hip thing, right? So I'm going to take my left leg into a number 4 pose before I stay open. So I'm going to lift up that left leg, I'm going to plant that left foot in front of my knee for a number 4 pose, right? I could also do a lotus pose if I wanted to. But a lot of us are just going to stay with that nice support of the bolster. And then eventually we might open up all the way. If my elbow was floating, I could keep reaching with my elbow, or if it was fatiguing, I could just let it rest on my ribs, which would be calmer on my shoulders, and I'm still getting this nice hip opener. Alternatively, I could take it to the floor and I could grab onto the bolster with my other arm. So if I'm doing number 4 pose, I pick up that left leg, I externally rotate it, and I put the sole of the left foot on the floor and I open that knee if I'm twisting in a number 4. Nice. And then I move that knee towards the end of my mat, or I can still be hugging my knees. Good. I'm just finding a spot that's comfy and just breathing here. If you're holding that shoulder, sometimes it's nice to hold the bolster in like a little mini twist to get this nice opening through that armpit. That frozen shoulder tends to tighten from the outer arm to the outer ribs. It's a nice, done a lot of work in that area. And then just close your eyes, look straight up at the ceiling if that feels comfortable, and breathe. Just feeling that left rib cage and really breathing into that space you've created. You've done a lot of rib opening. Just think with each inhale that that rib cage is going to expand, the back, the side, the front. With each exhale, that rib cage is going to gently contract. You could even think about like pulling that top knee back into the pelvis a little bit if you wanted to get a little bit more of a stretch. Like we started with that kind of rocking sensation, but pulling that top knee, that left knee back a little bit. Whether we're in number 4 or whether we're in this position. Let's go 10 more breaths here, and if you want to add a little mantra to those 10 breaths, fabulous. quickly. Bring that left elbow over to join the right. If you've done a number 4, lift up your leg, bring it back over. Good, take a moment here, let that relax. Then we're going to push ourselves up and come onto the other side, so just kind of pushing ourselves up. If you want to roll over, roll over. And then coming back, somewhere between a 90-degree angle up the thigh to the belly and a 120, whatever's working for you. Some type of pillow, although you don't need it. And if you got something for between your legs, by all means, use it. It's lovely. And then I like to, as I mentioned before, have the crease, sort of the nook of my elbow and my wrist matching the bolster, right? So that I'm getting that wrist and elbow support. I just love what it does to my wrist. Good. And then just rocking that pelvis. You're just gonna like move that top leg bone to your pelvis and away from your pelvis. Just feels so nice on the low back. And then stopping with those knees kind of stacked, take that top arm, that right arm, grab the shoulder. Let's start with some circles. Like exploring that range as we squeeze our shoulder. Change direction with the circles. Squeezing that bolster helps to keep the opposite arm engaged. If you don't have a bolster, just root that opposite arm into the floor so you're getting that engagement from finger to finger, from elbow to elbow. And then a little bit of a chicken wing here, up and down, snow angel style. Still holding onto that shoulder. I use this routine a lot too if sometimes you get someone that was in an accident, like a car accident, and they can't lie flat on their back. I always start them on their side with the bolster between their knees. And then finally, let's end with the twist. So we bring the elbow to the elbow, we bring it up, we reach, we can roll onto the skull a little bit, a little mini twist here. And gradually that twist can grow if it feels appropriate. If you get a number 4 on one side, then bring that right elbow forward, take that right leg into the number 4 pose as you continue with the twisting. And then eventually open it up to where it's comfy. And if you're not twisting too deep, you can reach with the elbow, you can put your arm on your ribs. I like sometimes to kind of hold that bolster over my head, almost like I'm getting that opening through the armpit can be nice. If you're grabbing the bolster on one side, you can grab on the other, or a straight arm, or whatever you feel like. And remember that connection of pulling that top knee back to rock the pelvis. If you feel that and you try and do that, it can get into a really little sweet spot there for you. And finding your breath, big, beautiful breaths. that rib cage on the right side, and really breathing into it, breathing into the right armpit, the right shoulder blade, the right waist and hip. Let's go 10 more breaths on this side. And when those 10 breaths are complete for you, you can take your top arm, your right arm back over to its own side. Release the number 4 pose. If you held it, take a moment here. And then we're going to finish with legs up the wall or legs up the wall variation, right? So I'm going to give you a couple options. So we all know regular legs up the wall. You can put a bolster underneath your pelvis. Pregnant, I loved that. Like, I loved a really cushy, soft bolster, not huge under my pelvis when I was pregnant. And I even sometimes liked a double bolster because it gave my belly room. But that's not for everybody, right? So some people might like to have a chair, for example, and then push their feet into the chair. And you can either have a blanket or you can put a bolster underneath it. And then you can have your legs up on that chair. Or the couch or something, that could be really nice, mellow, but still a really sweet low back release. Also just gives you space for the belly. I like to do legs up the wall with no wall or with a wall. And sometimes I like to do a legs up the wall with or without a wall. Particularly without a wall, I like to do it with a bolster on my feet. Right, so you could imagine that I had a wall behind my legs or not. And I want to make sure that I've got nice hip creases. Right, so finding some variation of legs up the wall or legs on a chair or whatever you've got, right? Doors work great. I know a lot of people are like, I don't have a wall without art, but a door works fantastic. Closed. Do you want a chair?
Yeah,
Yeah.
how can I use that?
You can use this or a chair, but I like this better than a chair, honestly. It's so nice. And then one thing about the bolster with that is the perfect bolster, that cushiony one
This
there. Yeah. And then I just kind of put my feet on it and lift my pelvis and shimmy up that way. Yeah, exactly. How's that feel? Kind of nice because it gets the belly up your thighs.
I try that a lot.
And just finding your breath, letting the shoulders relax. So if this was tugging into our low back or it was too much for our hamstrings, we bend our knees and either keep our knees bent, move our butt away from the wall, or add something underneath our low back like a bolster to make it like less of an intense leg stretch. A little hamstring is good, but we don't want it to be like screaming, and we don't want it pulling into our low back. And our low back is never allowed to float. Close your eyes. Just find that nice, expansive breath. And if our pelvis is on the floor, we've done the option where we don't have height underneath our pelvis, we could do a different type of arm. We could do straight arms, cactus arm, grab an elbow. But if we've got our pelvis higher than our shoulders, then at this stage of the practice, we want to have our arms lower than our shoulders. Remember, if it creeps in too much, you bend your knees. A little bit of tingling or pins and needles is good, but if it becomes irritating and agitating, just bend your knees, give yourself a little break. Now, if this is just brilliant, you want to stay here for another 5 minutes for Shavasana, feel free. If this was quite intense, it's time to take Shavasana. So you just kind of bend your knees, give those legs a little hug, a little rock. And then press your feet into the wall to lift up your pelvis to come off in height. Make your way into Shavasana. The pregnant ladies, by second trimester, kind of mid to end, we usually want to start to take Shavasana on our right side with a bolster between our knees and maybe a bolster underneath our head or pillows or whatever we've got. But make your way into Shavasana if that's what you need to do. If you want to stay with legs up the wall, then do that. Hi, Lola. Hi, good puppy. So cute. Just closing your eyes, letting go of any remaining tension with your last big exhale. And finding your natural breath, but using that breath as a bridge between your body and your mind to keep your mind with your body, with your practice. slowly, very gently start to wake up your body from the inside by deepening your breath. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. With a nice big inhale, stretch your arms. And exhale to let your arms come down as you start to bend your knees, walking your feet towards your seat. Exhale to roll off to one side. Nice inhale and arms bend to push yourself up. Coming to a comfortable seated position, hands coming into Namaskara. Let's end with a humming Om before we dedicate the merit of our practice. Maybe use this class to be mindful of the words of the Radiohead. We do it to ourselves, it's true, and that's why it really hurts. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your practice. Namaste! Namaste, everyone. Namaste, Turner.
That was perfect, thank you.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Lots of neck releases for you. So good.
Thanks, Michelle.
My absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll see a lot of you guys in the studio next week.